Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. What is the worst kick in the history of the Green Bay Packers? There have been thousands upon thousands of field goal attempts in the over 100-year history of the franchise. With such a large sample size to choose from, how could we possibly determine the worst of the worst? Well, there's 4 criteria to use that I think is a pretty fair baseline to establishing this. Number 1, the kick has to cost your team the game. You have to be down by 3 or less in the fourth quarter with practically no time left, and completely choke the game away with a miss. Number 2, the kick has to be a relative chip shot. It has to be a kick that practically every kicker in the National Football League could hit. It would be silly to say that the worst missed kick of all time is something from 50 plus yards out. This kick has to be something that the average fan can think to themselves, even I would have made that, even though we know for a fact that they likely can't, because kicking a football is harder than it looks. Number 3, the kick has to miss badly. I'm talking about a kick that somehow winds up farther away from the goalpost than it was when the ball was snapped. This has to be a kick that you knew right away had no chance of going in. And number 4, this kick had to be so bad that it costs the kicker his job, and he never plays in the NFL again after this. It has to be that monumental of a screw-up for the front office to immediately get rid of him. With all that in mind, folks, we have a kick that fits all the aforementioned criteria. In a 1988 game against Washington, Green Bay kicker Max Zendejas hit a field goal so bad that he got booed by the home fans and was out of the NFL afterwards. And this is the story behind what might just be the worst field goal in Packers history. Before I talk about the kick in question, we need some context as to who Max Zendejas is, since obviously, one bad kick isn't going to be enough to get you out of the NFL entirely. Our story begins in 1986, when the Dallas Cowboys spent their 4th round pick on the Arizona kicker. They still had Rafael Septien, who was one of the better kickers in football throughout the first half of the 1980s, but his field goal percentage had been declining as he got on the wrong side of 30, and his percentage from the 1985 season put him in the bottom half of the league. On top of that, Septien had some back problems that the Cowboys were unsure about, so they drafted Zendejas hoping that he could be their kicker of the future. Instead, Zendejas was cut. Septien won the kicking competition, and Zendejas would watch the first month of the season on his couch. However, after getting tryouts from San Diego and Buffalo to no avail, he landed the starting job in Washington. I talked about this in a previous video of mine, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, but after the 38-year-old Mark Mosley faltered at the start of the season, going just 6 for 12, Washington signed Zendejas. The end result for Zendejas in his first real opportunity in the NFL? Not good. He went just 9 for 14, with his percentage of 64.3% ranking just outside the bottom third of the league. If you take away the kicks from inside 30 yards, he was 4 for 9, which is not going to cut it. He had one game against the Minnesota Vikings where he missed not 1, not 2, but 3 extra points. In fact, his play was so erratic that before the regular season ended, Zendejas lost his starting job to Jess Atkinson, who handled kicking duties for Washington during that 1986 postseason run. It seemed as though after he got cut by Washington, his NFL career was on life support. That was until the strike happened. When the strike occurred, teams needed replacement players to fill the void while the current players were picketing. The Packers needed a kicker to replace Al Del Greco, and so they called on Zendejas. Sure enough, Zendejas delivered. He attempted 7 field goals for the Packers during the strike, and he hit all 7 of them. While Del Greco got his job back after the strike, after Del Greco went just 4 for 8 over the ensuing 3 games, including 2 missed field goals and a 26-24 loss to the Chicago Bears, the Packers brought Zendejas back. Zendejas finished that 1987 campaign hitting 16 out of 19 field goals, and outside of an awful game against Chicago where he went 1 for 4, he did not miss a single field goal in any game that he played. Entering 1988, it seemed like Zendejas had some stability, and had a shot to keep his career going. The strike gave him an opportunity, and he took advantage of it, and then some. Unfortunately for him, when 1988 rolled around, he couldn't quite keep that momentum going. Before we go any further, I want to give you an idea of just how good Zendejas was in 1987. He ranked 3rd in the entire NFL amongst all qualified kickers in field goal percentage, hitting 84.2% of his kicks. On kicks from 40 plus yards out, he went 7 for 9, and this was in an era where many kickers were struggling to hit 50% from that far out. There was no kicking competition for 1988. Zendejas had one of the better seasons of any kicker in football in 1987, and earned the right to be the starter. Turns out, that 1987 season was looking like a bit of a fluke. To say he did not play well to start off the 1988 season would be a massive understatement. In Week 2, the Packers took on the Buccaneers. The Packers lost the game 13-10, with Dominic YBK hitting a 28-yard field goal for Tampa Bay with no time left. How did Tampa Bay get in position to kick that field goal? Well, a few minutes earlier, Zendejas was lining up for what could have been the go-ahead field goal, and he missed it. In fact, he missed 2 kicks that game. He missed an extra point in a Week 4 game against the Bears, He followed that up by missing 2 field goals in a 27-24 loss to the Buccaneers, followed that up by missing a field goal against the Patriots in Week 6, and followed that up by missing an extra point in Week 7 against the Vikings. In 7 games, Zendejas missed a kick in 5 of them. Of the 2 that he made all of his kicks in, one of them was a 34-7 loss against the Rams where he went 1 for 1 on extra points. So if you want to count that, then be my guest. Through 4 home games, Zendejas was hitting just 40% of his field goals. It was becoming very clear that Zendejas was now in serious trouble. Nobody knew which version of Zendejas we would get in 1988. The highly erratic one from Washington in 1986, or the incredibly consistent and steady one from Green Bay in 1987, especially during the strike. And it seemed like halfway through the 1988 campaign, we were getting the highly erratic one. In Week 8, Green Bay was taking on Washington at Milwaukee County Stadium, needing to win this game against the defending Super Bowl champion to have any shot whatsoever at making it to the postseason following a poor 2-5 start. Little did Zendejas know that he was about to make history in the worst way possible. October 23, 1988, Green Bay against Washington in an absolutely monumental game for the Packers. With a win, they're right back in the thick of things at 3-5, and have all the momentum in the world with new starting quarterback Don Majkowski on their side, with this being their 3rd straight win and coming against the best team in football the year before. But if they were going to win this one, they couldn't afford too many screw-ups and mistakes. And it seemed like kicker Max Zendejas didn't quite get that part of the memo. In the first half, Zendejas does everything that's expected of him. After Green Bay starts the game off trailing 10-0, Majkowski finds Keith Woodside for a 49-yard touchdown pass to cut the deficit to 10-7 after Zendejas hits the extra point. Then with under 10 seconds to play in the second quarter, Zendejas hits a 34-yard field goal to tie the game at 10 apiece. So far, so good. Green Bay takes their first lead of the game on their first drive of the third quarter after Majkowski finds Woodside for his 2nd touchdown of the game. Fun fact, in his 4-year career, Keith Woodside only caught 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns came in this game right here. Zendejas hits the extra point, and Green Bay leads it 17-10. It's the ideal start to the game for Zendejas, especially after a rough start to the season. Unfortunately for him, things are about to go haywire. Washington retakes the lead to make it 20-17, but after Ken Stills records an interception midway through the 4th quarter deep in Washington territory, Green Bay has a shot to tie the game. They send Zendejas out to try a 46-yard field goal with less than 8 minutes to go, and he misses it wide to the right. Not ideal, but as I said in the introduction, no way is this the worst kick in Packers history. There's still 8 minutes left, and that kick was close and from 46 yards out on a somewhat wet and muddy field. If you want to see something atrocious, just wait a few seconds. Green Bay gets the ball back still trailing 20-17, needing to drive 68 yards down the field to win the game in regulation, or at the very least, 30 to 40 yards to tie it up and send it into overtime. On a critical 3rd and 9 situation, Majkowski works some of his magic by escaping the pressure, stepping up, and hitting Sterling Sharp for a 1st down. Sharp does the rest and picks up 41 yards on the play to put Green Bay in field goal range at the 2-minute warning. On the very next play, Majkowski runs it, keeping it himself for a gain of 18 yards and another 1st down. While the Packers aren't able to do a whole lot after that, there's now 10 seconds left in the game. Facing 4th down, the Packers send Zendejas onto the field. It all comes down to this. It's a chip shot field goal from 24 yards out. Make this kick, and the Packers are going into overtime. Miss this kick, and who knows if you're playing in the NFL again. What you're about to witness is a kicker completely cracking under the pressure. What you're about to see, considering the circumstances, might just be the worst field goal in the history of the Packers franchise. Roll the tape.
They're just thinking about the block. 24-yard attempt. The Redskins wanted a timeout. They didn't see Gibbs. And here's Zendejas' kick. It's no good. It's off to the left. Zendejas has missed 2 field goals, including a 24-yarder, and the Redskins will hold on.
This was a shank of epic proportions. The ball legitimately wound up further away from the goalpost than it started off. Zendejas was booed by the Milwaukee faithful as the Packers lost this one 20-17, essentially putting the nail in the coffin in their season at the halfway point. And after the game, it became abundantly clear that Zendejas could no longer be kicking for the team. When your miss is so bad that the opposition is taunting you after the game, with Dexter Manley offering to send him a Christmas gift, that's when you know you screwed up. That awful 24-yard miss was the straw that broke the camel's back. Zendejas told the press today after the game that he would respect any move that the Packers made. The move that they settled on was cutting him. Head coach Lindy Infante said that the move was made in the best interest of the club, and that he wished Zendejas all the best and figured he would catch on with another team. But that opportunity to catch on never came. It doesn't help that his agent, Jeff Irwin, had about the worst pitch possible for him. Irwin said on Zendejas' release, "Max is just very hot or very cold," which is not what you wanted a kicker. He then added on the season, he was still 9 for 16, and that's not bad. You're right, Jeff, that's not bad. That's terrible. In fact, it was so bad that amongst all qualified kickers that year, Zendejas ranked 26th out of 28 in field goal percentage. If you don't think that's bad, then I don't know what to tell you. With a pitch like that, no wonder Zendejas never caught on anywhere else. But when you consider all the circumstances, that 24-yard miss might have to be the worst kick in the history of the Packers franchise. A chip shot field goal? Check. 24 yards is a cakewalk for any kicker in the league, and has been for the last 40-some-odd years. A kick late in the fourth quarter to cost his team the game? Check. The Packers were down by 3 and lost it on that play, which, excluding one kneel down by Washington, was the final play of the game. A kick that wasn't even close? Check. This was a shank. No two ways about it. And a kick that cost him his job in the NFL forever? Check. This was the last kick of Zendejas' wildly inconsistent career. From the Packers' perspective, it's hard to do a whole lot worse than this. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Monday and Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9 and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping on the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.